Okay, Katie will be right back. It's just after 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome to our June Board Academy meeting. Michelle or Dr. Hanson will take roll call for us. Then I would, you don't have consent agenda, right? All right, so we'll start right there. So look for a motion to approve the employee resignations that are embedded in our agenda.
Administration recommends approval.
Okay, get a motion by Teresa. It's okay. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next would be professional teacher contracts that are embedded.
Administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Motion by Teresa, second, somebody? Second by Spencer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next would be the athletic co-curricular instructor leadership hires.
Administration recommends approval.
Motion on that.
So moved.
Motion by Teresa, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Would
And
it be
we'll-
okay if you asked her for the first one?
Okay, Katie, are you okay with the employee resignations, professional teacher contracts, and
I already looked at them, yeah, yep.
Okay.
good.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you very much. Thank you. No, you're great. Thanks, Michelle, for reminding me. All right, next then we would do consideration and possible approval to implement a 4-day, all-day 4K program on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, beginning with the 2025-2026 school year, and authorizing the district administration to hire the appropriate staff for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administration highly recommends this fantastic opportunity for the 4K students next year in the Tomah Area School District. As you all know, high quality student learning every child, every day is our mission, and our vision is to provide excellent academics and co-curricular activities, developing lifelong learning skills, and there's no better place to start than at the 4K. We had some interesting data we took a look at in the last few days. And if this is ever an example of agility leadership, high need and high impact, this would be one of those action items this evening that absolutely has benefits for the future. So on that note, I'd like to turn it over to a great team of folks that talked on Thursday, our faculty. We've got administrative representatives here, Tim and Michelle, and Holly Larson, our 4K instructional leader. I'm going to turn it over to Tim. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Tim Janimko, principal at Warrens in Wyville. For purpose of this conversation, a little bit of background also, when I first became an elementary principal 11 years ago, I was actually in charge of the 4K as well when I first started until the 4Ks then got distributed within the building. So certainly I've been around our 4K program for a while in my career as an elementary principal. But a few things that have led us to tonight, first of all, looking at enrollment numbers. There have been many sessions that have had single digit numbers. Some of you may know too, because of dwindling numbers, we actually had ended our relationship with Noah's Ark right across from Sens Field. That program went from having an annual number of kids at roughly 15-ish to down to like 5 and 6 a couple of the last years that we had there. So numbers have certainly gone down. We have recently talked with our admin group, our elementary group, and our district office people about input to this and where we felt we needed to go, and it was a pretty strong agreement that we needed to look at this model. Last week we did invite 4K teachers to that conversation, so they have been brought into this discussion. This has not just been an administrative discussion, and I know Holly is here to represent them as well, and certainly can help answer some questions as we go through. But we did discuss a number of ideas, and the all-day 4K certainly was brought up. And I'm going to say this again later at the end, but I am a firm believer that this is what's best for our kids, and it is good for kids. So, like I said, I'll circle back to that soon. So some pros: more time to work on social emotional needs and body regulation. you guys know and you often hear about behaviors, right? We have a lot of kids that come to school as kindergartners or even as 4Kers and really struggle with their social emotional regulation, their body regulation, how they play with other kids. There's oftentimes kids that are coming to school that have not spent a lot of time in appropriate play with other children. Having an all-day program would very much allow that to happen for them, not only to work on those social emotional regulations, but learn appropriate play. That would be a big part. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but that'd be likely a big part of half of the day, really the whole day, but I think probably especially a half of the day. It definitely means consistency for children and parents. The cool thing is that kids could have the opportunity to have breakfast and lunch every single day. Right now, if kids come in the AM, they have the opportunity for breakfast, so they don't have the opportunity for lunch. If they come in the afternoon, they have the opportunity for lunch, but not for breakfast. This would allow them the opportunity for both, and we know that we have many impoverished families out there that struggle for food, putting food on the plates of their children, and we'd be able to provide that resource to them. Again, a great environment. Kids are going to be able to come into school and they're going to have a very warm, inviting, learning environment for a full day rather than just a half a day that they would be able to take part in. Certainly addresses lack of places for 4K students to go for half of a day. A lot of times, and a lot of you know this, is daycares will charge you the same price whether a kid goes there for half a day or they go there for a full day. In some cases, there are even daycares that don't take kids for half a day. They're only taking kids for a full day. So this addresses taking care of the children in our community for a whole day and not having parents have to worry about the other half of the day. It eliminates midday transportation. Again, I think this comes up in a slide here in a minute, but we would no longer have to have midday transport of kids, so that really helps out our transportation department as well, that they're not having to find drivers to go out in the middle of the day and get kids and take them home as well. So some concerns, right now we're losing children to other schools that do have all-day 4K. We have kids enrolling into other districts that have 4K. Again, even if it's not other districts, they're often choosing daycare instead of 4K because their kid can go there and be safe and be taken care of all day long. So whether that's other school districts or just daycare, they're making other choices at this point. And then what happens if a parent still wants their child to go for only a half day? So our proposal would be that that's okay. But they would be the ones that would be in charge of that transport. So they could, if they do only want their child to come for the morning, and that would be the idea too, is that it would be the morning, and then they could get picked up at the end of their morning session by parents, grandparents, whoever it may be. Again, in this proposal, we wouldn't necessarily offer the afternoon as the half a day. It would be the morning, and then they would exit after that time if parents want to pick them up. So space, so we have had some reduction of class sections at Lemonwire. So there are some extra rooms there that we have availability that we could create an extra 4K section and or extra 4K sections depending on the numbers. So we do have the space for it to go to. Obviously, we would utilize the spaces that we currently have already. Like I'll just speak to my school, Warren's. We certainly could take that on. We already have a room for that that's not really used very much in the afternoon. So we do have the space in our building. I know others do as well. So a few other concerns. So structure of the day. The extra time can't just be for academics. They are 4-year-olds. So I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. The intent of the extra time would be to continue to teach very explicitly social emotional strategies, how to de-escalate, how to manage our emotions, how to appropriate play, whether that's within the classroom and items and materials that they're sharing and working with in the classroom, or it's out on the playground playing appropriate outdoor games and being able to work together, learn to lose, learn to win appropriately, etc. So that extra time would not be we're just hammering them over the head with academics. We would still work that in, of course, because that's an important thing, but we'd really focus on behaviors and play and appropriate managing of emotions. The teacher prep time, we've learned from some other area districts implementation. There are some districts out there that are going to the 5-day, all-day 4K, but one of the things that we've learned in some of our discussions is that it really is a struggle for teachers to get their prep time in and really be able to stay above water. So that's why we do want to look at the 4-day instead of the 5-day, because we do want our teachers to be able to prep and collaborate with each other and do all those things still, because like in some other districts where they have 5 days, the teacher is getting time, but a lot of time that is an aide or some other people in the room watching the children, and so the teacher can't even have their room to prep in or collaborate in. The kids are still there, and we know if the teacher's there, they're still going to get grabbed and bugged about things. So that's why we're looking at the 4 instead of the 5 that some area districts have done. So again, the 4 full days would still very much provide needed time for the students. So then budget-wise, and I know Ms. Clark would probably have more answers to this, but we would need to furnish 1, maybe 2 4K classrooms at Lemon Wire, so we would need to buy some things that are 4K appropriate sizes and items for them. If numbers would stay roughly where they are at right now, we would need to hire 1 4K teacher, 1 additional 4K teacher, and then 1 non-certified support staff member to assist that teacher. And then depending on student need, we may need to offer or have another 4K certified support member added to that, depending on, again, the needs of the students. And then lastly, if numbers increase drastically, we would need to hire another 4K teacher and support staff member. So there is the potential. I would say that top part is probably the likely scenario that we would need to at least hire 1 4K teacher, 1 support staff member. But if we do see a big uptick here because we are now offering all day, there is the possibility of a second hire of a 4K teacher and support staff member. And that is,
I can just add to that with the budget part is that because of reduction in first grade at Home Life Connection because of numbers, that teacher's already in the budget. They have 3 sections this year and only need 2 next year. So the teacher would be already in the budget. Support staff would not be in the budget yet. And it's one of those things too, it depends on the student needs. If we have to look at a special ed teacher or not, but we can't really determine that. And that would be funded through the special ed funding, but we supplement that.
What's the timing of when would this like we roll this out tonight, when would we be notified of the interest? Like when will enrollment happen? Right away?
Let's put that together. Because we have a registration in right now, so now these would be the new metrics behind it.
Okay.
We're hoping that we'll see some more. Because you looked at this, I do even at the high school level, I think to myself, what a great way to have these little guys in our district now continue to move them forward to graduation. Our 4K faculty are amazing. They've entered into some deep professional development last year. SMART is the acronym, but if you have questions on that, it was brilliant what I heard, and it's so tailored to exactly what Mr. Junior said, developmental levels of things. So it's a home run on so many levels to get out ahead of, go for it. And there's opportunities in the future. Let's say funding is now attached to 4K over the next 2 to 3, 4 years for the legislative side. Absolutely moving to a 5K. There are going to be those stages, those opportunities to strike in the 5-day realm when we get some of the barriers that we might see. Take a year to take a look at planning for our faculty and other things. And we'll just rely on us there. So.
Yeah, so right now they're counted at 60%. And that, I believe, will eventually change. It could change in this coming budget
Yeah, I have several questions for you. You said that numbers are down, but are you anticipating that this would increase our numbers for our district? That's
So,
number one.
yes, I would anticipate that. To how much, I don't know. I don't think we would know that until we, obviously put it in implementation. But I really think that we have a relatively significant amount of people that don't send them because it is only half a day. Yeah, I really think that is a issue.
And what is the cost savings on transportation?
I don't know. I mean, it would reduce, I mean, just thinking about looking around the district, it would reduce a midday bus at each one of those 4K sites. So Warren's, LaGrange, Lemonwire, Tomah School of Childhood, Oakdale.
Tom is
So,
here.
oh, I didn't see you over there. So.
You have any kind of guess?
We're gonna lose all your drivers, all the drivers that drive, all the aides that are there, that all have contracts would not drive or aid.
Asking about numbers, Tom, how many 4K buses do we run in midday,
Midday.
roughly,
5.
for the district?
But then there's the little buses. too,
Warrens.
the white ones.
Oakdale, Tomah School, I think 5 bus routes and probably as many aides, and then I think all the van drivers have run midday routes, so 16, 17 drivers.
And so are all of those drivers, driving at midday? All 17 of them?
Just off the top of my head, I believe you see every one of them come through to do a midday route.
Okay. So, then you said something about, adding an extra classroom at Lemonwire. Would that take away another classroom at another site, or how many classrooms of 4K do you anticipate?
Well, I would say, and I guess I'll maybe lean to Ms. Clark on this, but I would say that all of the current sites would stay, so where they currently are. So LaGrange would have a room. Lemonwire already has one. They would keep that. Warren's would keep theirs. Oakdale would keep theirs. Tomah School of Childhood would keep theirs. And then because of the numbers, the additions would take place then at Lemonwire. So, and that could be one, as we said, or if the numbers really rocket up, we'd be looking at 2. And again, Lemonwire does have the ability to add those. We do have space for those that take place. So all the ones that are there would stay. We would likely add at least one more at Lemonwire, possibly 2.
And how many kids are in a classroom?
How many kids are in a 4K classroom? Caps are 18, am I right when I say that? So the cap number would be 18 that
So
they
it's
could
18.
possibly have.
18 plus an aide, so 18 to 1 teacher plus an aide.
Plus an aide, and then depending on
Okay.
needs of the students, I mean, if there are special education students that need extra support, that would come to our special education department that supports them already.
Where are your sped child find kids right now?
All over. I mean, we have special education support staff that assist students in 4K at Lemonwire, at LaGrange, at Oakdale, at Warren's, really all of the sites, I think, except Tomah School of Childhood probably does not. You do
And
also,
so
okay.
all of them are included into the regular classroom, correct? Into,
Yes.
they're in the inclusion.
Yes,
method.
absolutely.
Okay.
Before you go to the next question, I just want to add, because there were plenty of years when I was at LaGrange that we had more than 18 in a classroom because we have to. We like to keep them at 18 or under if we can. But they're, like I said, if we can't say no because.
Okay.
I think my cap is 19,
Yeah,
according to
Tomah
state
School of
licensing,
Yeah.
because of the size of my room, because I'm not in district building space, I'm in a private building space, so that makes it different, so mine is 19.
yours is a hard 19,
Mhm.
okay.
If I go over that, state licensing will come and say we can't have it
We've
there.
never had overnight.
And we don't have to, that brings me to the next question, because this new set of rules in this state. The state licensing, doesn't govern the public school system on caps and how many people are in there.
Not to my knowledge.
For
TDI does that for the district, correct?
We just have-
But they don't even have a cap.
say that again?
We have district policies, but if we need to
Right.
exceed, we exceed.
DPI doesn't say you can only
Correct,
have.
no.
Right.
Okay,
We have what we'd like to see, we have to exceed or some below.
okay, so you don't have to go by
No hard.
daycare standards,
No way.
okay.
Just you,
Question?
just tell us.
Yeah.
I'm the
Just you,
lowest.
okay.
Thank you, that's a good one.
So, go ahead.
Anybody else got anything?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Lots. I apologize in advance.
I might have questions after.
So what was the main drive behind this?
I think it's a couple different things. I think one, certainly we've seen numbers dropping, in that, so I mean, I think that's a driver. We are looking at, again, we've already had to end our relationship with Noah's Ark, but numbers were part of it. But I still think it ultimately comes back, I mean, that maybe is part of the starter discussion, but I frankly think this is what's best for kids. The fact that we can, have them in a positive environment all day long. And again, they're getting meals, they're learning, appropriate play, as I've said several times. And as we know, a lot of kids are coming to current 4Ks kindergartens and they really struggle with that. They struggle to manage emotions, they struggle to play nice with others, etc. So for me, my true honest answer is this is what's best for kids. I think it also is supportive of our community. I mean, I think it's a better thing for parents, to have a place that they can send their kids where they know they're safe and they're fed and they're learning appropriate behaviors and academics, all day long rather than a half a day. So
I just add.
Yeah.
Tim and I talked about this 10+ years ago when we were both elementary principals. And just, it could never be a conversation because there was never a room.
Right.
So it's the space, these are low numbers. Our private schools have all day, every day, 4K now.
So was Noah's Ark all day?
No.
Was
No.
it part day?
They had kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna say it right, but wraparound care, but our 4K program was only in the afternoon. So our teacher went from Warren's in the morning to Noah's Ark in the afternoon.
So if they had wraparound care, why was their numbers decreasing?
I had kids from Noah's come to me at Tomah School Childhood, like they would do daycare in the morning at Noah's, and then they'd come over to me for 4K in the afternoon. I don't know why they did that, but they weren't staying at Noah's.
Okay. So then, wrap my head around that. Was this approved at any other level? So I've heard some rumors, and I don't know if they're true or not. But I was told that parents are already being told their kids' 4K assignment as all day.
They haven't been told anything.
We just met about it on Thursday.
They said it was approved on Thursday.
Wednesday, something.
Wednesday last week, we had a meeting with 4K teachers, Michelle, Mike, elementary principals, just to discuss it because we wanted to hear from the 4K teachers. It's by no means been approved. I mean, we obviously know this needs to go through a board process, but I mean, we meant to get input from people last week, but certainly not.
We'll have to know who that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're not getting actual information.
They can't say that.
Always go to the source, that's my
Yes, that
motto.
would be
Give me a call.
what you think. The other question is, was all of the 4K staff involved? The whole 4K staff was involved in the discussion?
Mhm.
teachers.
All the classroom teachers were, every 4K classroom teacher was there. Yep.
Except for one who was at an IEP but was well aware of what was going on.
But no support staff.
We did not involve support staff in that meeting, no, because we were seeking input from the teachers on the model and what we would like to propose, so no support staff not involved in that.
And most of their schedules won't change. I think all of the except for one are already all day.
All day, it's just they just have different kids in the morning and the afternoon, so.
So then the afternoon, when you're doing SEL and all that, is it gonna be more play-based? Are we sitting at tables and doing worksheets? Like,
No.
how is that gonna
No.
look? Is there
It
gonna be
is
nap time?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I am, if we move forward with this, I am going to go forward with meeting with other area schools that have all-day programs already in place and seeing what their schedules look like, but we are adamant that it is going to be play-based like our days are now. It's just giving us more time to teach those academic skills for the kids because they can't all learn it in 15 minutes. So they need, okay, we'll do 15 minutes here and then we're gonna do another 15 minutes here and then we'll do another 15 minutes here. And when you have all day to do that, it gives them more opportunities. So the kids that already know it, we can review, we can move forward, diversify everything for them like we're already doing. We're just adding time into the day to do that. As far as rest time goes, there will be a quiet time, a 30-minute piece. State licensing, I have to. And from what I talked to from other 4K teachers in multiple districts, they still do that because kids need to rest their body and calm down. It will not be a we're sleeping all afternoon kind of thing. It is a come in, calm down, relax, and then we're ready to learn again. Implementing more of the SMART activities that get their brains ready for learning, their bodies ready for sitting and writing, that kind of stuff.
So I spent a few minutes trying to research this and I didn't have a ton of time and there's not a ton of research on the all day 4K. So I did my own little research project. And it is supported by parents in the district. However, the majority of them say that they support it because childcare costs and childcare issues, meaning that they see it as they're gonna go in the morning and then in the afternoon it's gonna be like a childcare where their kid gets to sleep and play. And so not saying that that's an issue. My issue comes in when we're not addressing the hour release on Wednesdays because we don't have the need, although like 58% of parents said that it negatively impacts them. But yet we're gonna put resources and time into an all-day 4K when we can't address an hour release that's gonna impact the majority of the students' families. And we're talking about space and how we need to build schools and we need to increase space, but yet we're saying we have the space for this. So there's a lot of conflicts here and a lot of hypocrisy. I know that has a negative connotation, but I think we really need to address that. I have no problem. I think that it's too much for kids from being a behavior analyst and having another master's in child development. I think that all day 4K is way too long. It's too much for kids. We're expecting kids to grow up too fast, let kids be kids, play in the dirt, get dirty. But I also understand that the dynamics of the economic are changing. And when I was younger, we had a majority of one parent income households. Now we're at 2 income households. So it would possibly alleviate some of that daycare concern for families. I do worry about the families that rely on that midday transportation that do want their kids to have half days, but they need to have the transportation. Getting that cut off is another worry that I have. But I would say that that's my biggest things, is that I think we're focusing on the wrong things here.
I guess one thing that I didn't address there is your comment on let kids be kids, play in the dirt, that kind of stuff. I think that's exactly what we're trying to do, is that the afternoon would be a lot of that play-based stuff, you know, where they can, to use your phrase, play in the dirt, you know, to learn to appropriately play with each other. I think I think what you're saying a little bit there is the fear that this is all of a sudden going to turn into a full day of academics, and that is not the intention. That was a pretty uniform thing in the room between the administration and our 4K teachers, is that we do not want it to turn into that. You know, we do want it to be playing in the dirt. We do want that to be, experiments, hands-on things that they can do, learning again to play together and do, group types of activities and independent play. You know, I'm talking a lot about group play, but independent play, of course, is an important piece too. So I think to that part of your point, I absolutely think that this will do this. I think kids can still be kids, but be kids in a controlled environment, I guess is the way that I would say that. So, and will there be rest time? Yeah, there'll be, as Holly just said, I think that there will be some rest time in the afternoon, but, I don't think it's going to turn into just, daycare where they're just hanging out and taking naps all afternoon. I think it'll just be more structured, appropriate play, and then there can be some explicit instruction on how we behave, how we play, how we win, how we lose, how we dig in the dirt, all those things. So I think that could be a real positive. Because we know that not all environments that they go home to are that way.
Right,
so.
and that's why I'm saying, like, from that perspective of the two who have, most people have two working parents and some have single parents, so I'm not against it, as long as, like, the afternoon is not just like drills all day, like the private school, right?
She said it was going to be
Right.
mostly play-based.
Right, and that's why I'm saying, I'm fine with it if it's gonna be play-based, I guess it would be.
One of the things I haven't said yet, though, that is another thing, is I think in our current structure, a kid going from that half a day of 4K to a full day of kindergarten is a pretty big jump, because kindergarten has become very academic in nature, and it becomes a very long day for kids and very heavy in academics. And I think that this is going to create, well, we're not, again, to be very clear, we're not going to hit them with more academics, but I do think them having a full day of school, it will help them transition easier into that kindergarten place. And I guess I hadn't said that, but I really truly think that will help that transition.
The other thing that we were hoping for with this is just more consistency for the kids. Because they come to me in the morning and then they go someplace else in the afternoon and then they go home, and so they're having multiple sets of rules and expectations, and at 4 that's really hard to understand one set versus 3 or even sometimes 4, depending on if there's 2 households and 2 different daycares and all that kind of stuff. So having them in one place for a whole day will help with that part as well.
So, sorry, one other thing just ran through my mind as I think about other positives is, so a lot of times our 4K kids can miss out on some of the school environment things that take place too. There are lots of times where we do fun activities at school in the afternoon as a school, right? And so I think that this would help them and their families feel more engaged in that entire, like I think about Warren's, if we had those kids there all day, there are lots of things that take place in the afternoon that they can now be involved in and feel even more a part of that entire school culture and school environment too.
Other questions?
Yeah, I had one, referencing Children's House. So Ms. Ames must have been involved in that too.
She was.
Because that is a transition that those 5K become the mentors of the 4K and right up the line. So I was wondering how, I know it's a smaller percentage, but if she's okay with that and the school, it's just something that's a transition that takes place at Montessori.
Absolutely.
And that Montessori, that their 4K day may look a little bit different because she has kids in kindergarten every day. So we may need to get creative on making sure she gets part time.
That's all it is.
Yep, and she was, and Ms. Ames absolutely was involved in this and voiced her support and concerns, and she
Okay.
was very involved in the discussion.
Right.
Yep,
Make
and,
sure.
and to Ms. Clark's point, I think that there are some things, bugs or whatever you wanna call it, that have to get worked out with it over there. But I think it's doable, and I think she thinks it's doable too, so, yeah.
Again, Ms. Clark, and Dr. Hanson, the cost financially and for personnel, how much because our budget is tight, as you know, and you keep explaining to us. How do we fit more personnel into this budget and still do what's also on our docket? And get all groups happy as we can be, and not lose, in the matter of transportation, lose any drivers for our buses because they're critical, and any aides for our buses, you know, that go out and do other stuff in our district. How do we maintain that and still cover the cost of this and not lose personnel? I'm kind of perplexed. How are we going to afford it? I'm not against. I am not. Just so you know, I am not against 4K because I know I've seen great things happen with 4K all day. So I just want to let you preface that.
And there haven't been a lot of extensive conversations beyond the teachers and the principals because we needed to have you guys approve it too. So I know there are some concerns with transportation. Talked very, very briefly with Mr. Johnson today. And I didn't share any of this because my personal opinion doesn't matter until I hear what you guys want me to do. So will the budget need to be rearranged somewhat to afford that? Yes. Support staff, it's about 20,000 for support staff members hired on. And the concern with transportation, and again, I haven't talked with him, so this won't be word for word, Mr. Dartmouth, but we have great need in our buildings for more adults. We've had 9 to 15 open support staff positions all year long.
Within the budgets.
That are
Right.
within the
Year over
budget.
year.
And if we can take a bus driver that drives in the morning and the afternoon, and we currently do that sometimes with them now and have them work during the day also, we do end up paying hour or ish. I have to talk to Tom a little bit more about overtime because their day can be longer than 8 hours a day. But if people want to continue to work for the district, there are so many opportunities to do that if they still want to work with kids. And we will work with transportation just like we have in the past to make them a whole employee. We've never really had that opportunity with a lot of people because of the day problems.
So then you also, out of this pot of money, the personnel comes out of that, and then maintaining our buildings, and there's some infrastructure things that need to be repaired, as we all know from all of our meetings. How are we going to be able to do all of that if we do not pass a referendum, if we do not pass whatever, you know, a financial referendum or a building referendum or anything else? If we don't pass one of those, within our confines of our structure of our budget that we are given from year to year, how are we going to maintain all this and move forward and keep maintaining it? Because as you go up, all the expenses go up.
Right. Well, and we've talked about this a couple times already this spring, that there are so many unknowns in the state budget right now. They need to pass the biennial budget. Everything that they're looking at passing that is like a big ticket item, they all would benefit Tomah financially. Whether it's special ed, whether it's raising the revenue, the low revenue ceiling, whether it's how they're doing categorical aid. We're one of those districts that no matter what they do in the budget, it will benefit Tomah. That's not true for all districts. I can't tell you Black Point numbers right now until know all of that stuff.
Well, one advantage there too, I know it's 60%, but
We won't get.
you don't get any pay because 60%. I'm just saying if the enrollment increased,
Yes.
then you would be compensated for that increase in enrollment.
Move on in the grades. There's been a local district that failed an operational referendum and went 5 full days. They failed it. They went for it. So this is a really good thing. I would say Tomah's budget, thanks to your work, certainly Michelle's, we have a robust budget. And this is one of those pieces that will continue to grow our student enrollment, which is central to everything budget. So I'm a firm believer. In fact, I was a 5-day, all-day right from the get-go, and I got talked down from that, which is good because my aspirations were a bit high for what's going on. So caution has been put into this, reason, and also the need that we have. So, and there's not a whole lot of capacity out there. We're talking 2 classrooms in one building. Everywhere else, there's absolute need for facilities construction here in our district. So there is not open spaces everywhere.
But obviously, this would be, in essence, I won't call it that, almost like a trial balloon, because, well, once it's there, I mean, do we have?
Once you're committing, I think.
Yeah, that's my,
Committing.
that's just one question I have, and that, what if the
There's no
enrollment
backup.
does not, do as we anticipate, and we're still there?
Fantastic for the kids that are there. Fantastic, the right thing for kids.
Well, I'm not questioning that, I'm just saying, because that was part of the strategy, right? We would entice and encourage more participation.
And I do, and I don't have like
No,
stats to back this up, but what I was gonna say is like, I think you're starting to see this is the trend, right? That more and more school districts are going to, all day 4Ks. I think for a variety of reasons, a lot of what we've spelled out here. So I mean, I think you're gonna see this continue to happen more and more places. Frankly, I think at some point it will be 5-day, all day, or all day, every day. But I don't foresee this backtracking. Like I don't foresee us 5 years from now saying, oh, we need to go back to half days again. I just don't see that happening. That's just my opinion. That I don't have stats or data or anything to back that up. I just feel like that's where we're moving as a state, maybe nation. So.
Just trying to think ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all.
Excellent.
We have to be cognizant of the fact that, things can happen.
Absolutely.
We see there are more entities in town that are pursuing students. That's all I'm saying. So it has to be attractive. It has to engage.
All right, okay, cool. Very good, a lot of good conversation, things to think about. Obviously, things need to be figured out, but somebody prepared to make a motion for this?
I'll make a motion that we go to a 4-day, all-day kindergarten.
Okay, a motion by Sue.
All day kindergarten or all day?
Or
As
4K,
presented.
I'm
As
sorry.
presented. Yeah, right, as presented, yeah.
Kindergarten already is.
Right,
Already
basically,
approved.
That's a little wonky word.
Okay.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Sue and a second by Rick. All those in favor say aye.
I'll say
Opposed?
Aye. Nay. Sorry.
They.
Kate was nay, you were nay.
Yeah.
Heidi was nay? Okay, 4-3. Okay, try to make sense while thank you, Rick.
I can stand for a while. That's all right. It's all right. So thank you guys.
All right, have a
Good night.
Thank you. Okay. All right, good conversation. Next, we would have a presentation of the Tomah Middle School Behavior Contract Procedure.
I want to thank Amy Langer, Amy King, and the team at the middle school coming up with innovative practices as we continue our journey walking through the discipline, but
Can we just sit, like there's no podium, we don't have a
I suppose.
conversation. Alright, I kicked it old school and I made you some paper copies. This is behavior plan for the middle school for next year.
No, we need one more over here. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got it. So I have 2 handouts for you, so that we don't get confused. We're gonna go with this white one and then I have a yellow one. The white one is what we're gonna talk about first. The yellow one is what I would use to discuss with staff. Shout out to Angelica. She took my ideas and made them a little Tomah-fied and a little bit organized and pretty. So I have to give her some credit here.
Just make sure there's only one.
All right. Tonight, Amy and I are here to address behaviors. And I say that with a big sigh because student behaviors are a hot topic. Student behaviors are a big concern for staff, for students and families, and for administration. I feel like this time of the year, we are being very reactive and a little less proactive. We start out the year with good intentions. We have a plan. We think that we're going to try some things. And I would say this is my third year in this position, and what we have been doing just isn't working. We've been trying some things, and we've been due diligent, but it's time for something different. And that's what this plan is that I wanted to share with you tonight. So what I'm going to ask is that we're just going to focus on the white paper first of all. And if you just open to the first page that says behavior on the top. So what we are proposing or what we're planning on using next year is what we call a student contract. And I will get into the details. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of student contract. As stated here, a behavior contract is to establish clear expectations for student conduct to create a positive, respectful, and productive learning environment. Those are the three areas that we see the most is our classrooms sometimes aren't the most positive and haven't had the most positive outcomes. We are seeing a lot of disrespect and we're seeing a lot of disruption, particularly to the learning that's going on in the classroom. This contract serves as a mutual agreement among parents, students, staff, and parents, guardians to promote accountability, responsibility, and personal growth. By adhering to the outlined behavioral expectations, students will develop essential social and academic skills that contribute to their success in school and beyond. The contract encourages collaboration that fosters a supportive school community where all students feel safe, valued, empowered to reach their full potential. So what we're focusing here is on the students who struggle with following our expectations. We're also focusing on creating classrooms where all students feel empowered and safe and are getting the most out of the instruction that we're offering. Down below I have a copy of our whole expectations. This is what our PBIS team created a year ago. It's been tweaked a little bit. I have a large copy of this actually in my office. Every year at the beginning of the school year, I have some students come in, some future 8th grade students come in, and they help me create videos so that I can ensure that all students understand the expectations of the middle school. We talked about, you must be reading the bathroom ones. Yeah, they get us to giggle a little bit. So 2 years ago, I did have some of our summer school students help me with these expectations. I think I got a lot of positive things from them. They tend to be the students who struggle with following expectations, and so they gave me some of the input to create these. These also are, at the middle school, our main areas. It covers our classroom and library, hallway, cafeteria, our outdoor and ESS, bathroom, and technology expectations. We use HOWL as our acronym. That's the same that the high school uses. Honor learning, optimize time, work with integrity, and lead with respect. So this is something that if we were to be having a behavior contract meeting with a parent and a student, we definitely would address and highlight these. Again, this ensures, like in the beginning of the school year, we ensure that all students have a clear expectation of our school expectations. Over and over, I tell students and parents that what may be okay in your house isn't always okay in this house. I then talk about how like you may allow your student to drink on the carpet, like in your living room, but when you have 700 kids sitting on that carpet, and then usually a parent sits there and goes, okay, I get it. Like, so having that mentality that different houses have different expectations. I'm gonna turn the page on you and keep going here. All right, this is a two-sided document that outlines this contract. So a little backstory behind the contract. I'm gonna pick on an ideal student here. I'm gonna use my own daughter's name. Shelby just graduated, so we're gonna pretend that Shelby is the student that we're talking about. I don't know any other Shelbys at the middle school, so I don't think we would be stepping on anybody's toes. And we're going to pretend that Shelby has been identified by a teacher, by Ms. Langner, Mr. Ciceda, or myself as somebody who's struggling within a classroom and struggling within the hallways. So really struggling with our expectations that we have. That student then, Mr. Ciceda and I kind of watch, sorry, I don't say you, but you do too. We watch Infinite Campus, so we kind of see, sometimes we call them frequent flyers, who is struggling with following some of these expectations. We kind of talked about after 2 times of being brought to the office or sent out of class for specific things is when Mr. Ciceda or Mrs. Langner and I would intervene with a contract. So what a contract is it would be calling in Shelby's mom and dad and Shelby and an administrator to have a meeting to talk about these expectations and to talk about what's going to happen if Shelby can't follow the expectations that we have at school. There are 8 steps to this current contract. Step number 1 is simply starting a contract. It is having a parent meeting and going over this process. In a perfect world, starting this contract and having a parent there, and we're all going to work together, in 20 days without a referral, Shelby would be off of a contract and she would be celebrated. The hope is that including the parent right away and having a lot of communication we're going to be able to work together more. Our current system is kind of a never-ending, well, you get a lunch detention. Now you get 2 lunch detentions. Maybe you get some in-school, some out-of-school suspension, but we don't have the communication. We would like to, but we don't have the communication, and we don't have a possible end, I hate to say it this way, but end game. And so this is clearly going to lay that out for a family so that they understand that these expectations are what we truly expect out of our students. It also is going to create good scholars and good people. I mean, I think my job is obviously like every child every day, and we focus on academics, but we have to also focus on them being good people. And the expectations that I have on the prior page with the whole expectations, those are good people expectations that we're looking for our students to do. Oftentimes in my office, a student comes in and I look at them and I say, like, Shelby, you've been doing school since kindergarten. In kindergarten, because you scream in the stairway. And that student looks at me and goes, no. So we know the expectations. And so what this would do is this would kind of be a little bit more of a push to be following those expectations. So step 1 is just like Shelby would be placed on a contract. We would have had that meeting with Shelby's mom and dad, and the whole process would be clearly laid out to Shelby's family. Now, let's say that Shelby continues the disruptive behaviors, and I do have a list of possible behaviors coming up, so we'll get to those here in just a minute, okay? So Shelby continues to be incredibly disruptive in the classroom. She is swearing at the teacher. It's hard to talk about your own daughter this way, but she continues to swear in the classroom at the teacher out loud in front of everybody. So now Shelby would be moving on to step 2. So what would that look like? Now Shelby's getting the first step is a 30-minute lunch detention. Now she might have already had one before. So you could have gotten a lunch detention before being, or 2, being before being placed under a contract. Shelby will need to meet with me or Mr. Sasader and Mrs. Langner. She'll get her lunch detention. The teacher responsibility under step 2. So the teacher will send the student with a pass to the ALEC room. The teacher will submit a referral, and the teacher will be expected to call home. Admin responsibility. So I will take that reflection sheet that a student fills out in the ALEC room, and we actually just updated it. These last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been trying it out with students who get sent out of class. They don't like it, which tells me it's good. They spend the first probably 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how motivated they are, rewriting a short, medium-sized paragraph that talks about expectations and why we follow expectations. The purpose of that is to get them to be able to regulate, to de-escalate from why they're mad and got sent out of there. So it gives them some quiet time. It also gives structure in the ALEC room. You grab your ALEC sheet, and for some of our frequent flyers, they know they have to do that. And for kids who have done it multiple times, that's probably their least favorite part. When we turn the sheet over, it talks about what happened in the classroom, how did this affect my peers, and what can I do next time. So that sheet would get emailed home to the family, so the student reflection sheet. So as a parent, I would be getting, if it was Shelby, I would be getting called from the teacher, and I would be getting an email or a phone call from the administrator that has my student's reflection sheet on it. And contact that now Shelby is at step 2. Moving on to step 3. So Shelby still continues. Maybe this time, instead of swearing in class, she has absolute refusal. She is not going to open her book. She isn't going to, I know that the teacher has spent 5-10 minutes trying to convince Shelby to do this, and she still won't. Shelby's looking at 2 lunch detentions. So 60-minute lunch detention is actually 2 lunch detentions. Student will meet with admin to talk about their behavior and what happened. Student will serve their lunch detention. At step 3, we have student will turn in phone upon daily arrival. We started a version of this year. Middle schoolers and their phones, like that is their lifeline. And so they turn it in, and then they pick it up at the end of the day. We don't keep it. We have no intention to keep it. I've actually found that parents like it. And for the majority, like they support it because they feel like, okay, now they aren't going to be on their phone, or maybe they're already struggling with a lot of these behaviors at home, and so they feel that even just turning in the phone is a version of a consequence for them kid. The other parts stay the same as far as teacher responsibility and admin responsibility. Now we move down to step 4. Step 4 has 2 parts. So the first part of step 4 is Shelby is still swearing in class or whatever it is she's still doing. Now Shelby's getting a full day lunch detention. The difference in a full day lunch detention and an in-school suspension is a full day lunch detention doesn't affect the athletic code. I'm a firm believer that oftentimes my kids getting in trouble thrive on participating in other things. They thrive in being able to play the game, compete and participate in FFA, go to chess and gaming club, or be in jazz band. Like, they are kids who, that is a big focus, and it's a big reason that they come to school. So if I can throw them a little bit of a bone, for the lack of better words, sorry, and give them an all-day lunch detention before going into an in-school suspension, and at this level, we would be having that conversation, right, about how the next level is going to affect your coach and your team. So, student would serve an all-day lunch detention. Added on at step 4 is the loss of attendance at sporting events, co-curriculars, unless seated with a parent. If you ever go to a football game or even a choir concert, a lot of students like to go, but sometimes their behavior isn't always the best, or they're not there to watch the game, they're there to hang out. So what this would do is and we talked to Mr. Pluger to make sure that he could support this, and he agreed. By all means, you can still go to the football game, but you're going to the football game with an adult with the purpose to watch the game, or any of the events that you would be going to. I also talked to Mr. Kluger about how would we police this. I don't expect every crowd supervisor to be able to know who's who. A lot of times, Amy or Jared or I are at almost every football game, a lot of other events. It's not a perfect system. We also find out if a student was there, then they move up a step the next day when we see them. Also, students here would be assigned to Behavior Academy. That's what we call our Tier 2 intervention. So in the mornings, we have a flex time, and our counselors, Ms. Langer, Mr. Sesade, and myself, we would be taking a group and working on things. So maybe I'm working with, we have got 5 students who are not using appropriate language in the classroom. I would be gathering them, and we would be working for, it's usually like 6 to 8 weeks on language, other things we can say, how it affects other people, and really letting them know like how their language affects others while we're there. So now we're getting like a learning piece involved. Right after school, I believe it's the 11th and 12th, don't quote me on the dates, a bunch of us are going to Madison to a Behaviors Academy. Mr. Training, thank you. Mr. Hannigan, what's his first name? I know, he's like the behavior guru. I went to see him I listened to him 2 years ago. So these academies are already pretty much laid out. This isn't something that we have to reinvent. It's something that we could tweak if we can think of something better. We have started with some of the behavior academies this year. Our 2 school counselors each ran a behavior academy for students who are struggling with attendance. We did see some success in those students, and sometimes it's having a conversation. We had some students who, their phone has to be put in in the main level, but mom doesn't use an alarm clock. So we were buying alarm clocks for a couple of students so that they were getting up on time to be able to get to school on time. And just talking about school and the purpose of school, we explained some Wisconsin state laws and truancy laws to students, and we did see some success for a lot of the students who completed those programs. Now, on the other side of step 4, we really believe that any student who gets in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension would be placed under contract under step 4. At the middle school, the most common occurrences for in-school or out-of-school suspension are vaping, fighting, or threats to intimidate. And by threats to intimidate, I mean like telling another student, like, I'm gonna beat you up after school today. That's something that we've taken a really hard stance on. It doesn't make people feel safe. It doesn't make people feel that they want to come to school, and we have been assigning in-school suspension as a consequence for that. Now, there's other reasons that kids can get those. Any student who gets an in-school out of suspension would be set there. This is where their contract would start, though. So that initial parent meeting would be set up. They also have their loss of attendance at sporting events, co-curriculars. If they are participating in that event, they still get to go and participate. So I'm not taking away the opportunity. I mean, you're there playing the game, and you have a coach that's supervising you.
So they're even if they have in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, they're still allowed to play that sport
within the WIAA regulations, yeah, like depending on what step they are within it.
So for a first in-school, out-of-school suspension, they lose typically, and this is my understanding, is 10% of their season. So in a football season, you're gonna miss 1 game. Now, a second offense in the same year, it's 50%, and then a third offense is you're out for a full year. And so that's the WIAA side. The reason that I have this here is like, you still can participate, but you have to serve your athletic code. So that comes from Mr. Kluger and Ms. Reed, their suspension does. So you still would have to serve your athletic suspension, but once that's served, you would still get to participate. These students would also be turning in their phone, and they would also be placed in Tier 2 Academy. Step 5, now Shelby's getting some in-school suspension. We left it with 1 to 2 days, kind of depending on what happened, possibly what grade they are. If it's the, if it's the afternoon of one day, we might do an in-school suspension for the rest of the day plus the next day. This is really kind of the same thing as far as description of the student accountability, the teacher accountability. For all of these, the teacher is sending them to the ALEC room, so getting them out, removing them from the classroom. The teacher is contacting home, and then submitting that referral into Infinite Campus. And this is pretty common to what we expect now. Now we are okay with an email home. We're finding that a lot of parents don't check their email, so they don't know what's going on. And we're going to talk about this teacher accountability piece here in just a little bit coming up. Step 6 is in-school suspension 3 to 5 days. The only addition here then, as you can see, is if a student has an IEP, admin would contact the case manager to schedule a meeting. Something needs to be changed. Some sort of supports, modifications, accommodations need to be added because the current plan isn't working or needs to be revisited. Step 7 is out of school suspension, 1 to 3 days. And then our last one is placement in online learning. So currently at the middle school, our Compass students use a program called Ingenuity. Ingenuity does all core classes, and there is co-curriculars or related arts classes that can be put onto a student's account. I would work this summer to be able to take our standards that we have aligned with the lessons that Ingenuity has, so that if Shelby is going to be missing out on 4th quarter because she's going to be placed online, she's still covering pretty close to the same standards that we would be covering if she was still in the classroom. So here you can see, student will complete semester to full year online. If not successful, truancy can and will be filed. So if a student just refuses, they would be working, or I would be working with them with truancy stuff. Loss of attendance at co-curricular. So I will note that it takes those 3 occurrences to be an athlete in 1 year. And with this plan, those 3 occurrences, those 3 suspensions do fall in here. So step 5, 6, and 7 all have a form of a suspension. So by the time we would get to step 8, a student would not qualify to participate in co-curriculars.
So are they doing in placement in online learning in the school building or at home?
The plan right now is at home. And so then you can see there, the admin responsibility would be, admin will call home to set up a meeting to arrange online. One thing that I did miss is that step 4, the traditional way, you will see another parent meeting set up. So we're not gonna go from step 1 to step 8 without having another meeting in between. So halfway through, there's one more meeting where we're bringing in the parent and the student to kind of meet halfway. All right, we're gonna turn the page here. Angelica did a really nice job. She just kind of made a visual, I think more for students, that kind of summarizes what those steps are that I just took you through. Are you ready to go to the next page? I'm sorry if I'm going too fast.
So I had one super simple question. When you say days, is it school days or calendar days? Like Saturday, Sunday?
School days.
School days, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So 50 school days? That's like
10 weeks, 2.5 months. Okay, simple one.
so it's 5 days a week. Wow. Okay.
Okay,
Simple
quick
question,
question. The length of time here, are those concurrent, or do they start over after each step?
So we talked about being able to go like back a step too, like for understanding, because I think it gets too fuzzy. We're trying to make this as concrete as possible. So in a perfect world, you could be on step 7 and you do really well for 20 days and you would move back to a step 5. But now it kind of gets fuzzy with like, well, it creates more gray area, and we're trying to make this as concrete as possible. So what we would be hoping for anyway is that going the 10 days or the 20 days between each step. So that's what we just put on there. Now, what we're asking for with students in that length of time, and we do reserve the right to be a little bit understanding. A student gets a referral because they were watching YouTube instead of working on their assignments. I'm not going to count that necessarily unless that's what we're working on and that's the bad behavior is Chromebook misusage. So we will take what the referral is. Like, they're still kids, right? Like, I can't expect perfection. That's the one thing that I know out of my middle schoolers is perfection is near almost impossible. They're learning. So that's that goal range of days without a referral. There is a little bit, I don't want to advertise that there's gray area because then people will expect there to be some gray area. Yes.
Why would you go school days versus consecutive days? If you're going to have gray areas and kids collapse, especially if they're high behavior volume kids, like 18 referrals or whatever it may be, due to their mouth acting up, why wouldn't you just try to get them do it consecutive days versus the actual school days? You know, that way they're more likely to feel a little bit more empowered that, hey, I made it that way. So that's why I'm just kind of using your thought process, but yet trying to wrap my brain around 10 and a half weeks of being perfect.
Well, again, there are so many kids who can do this.
Right.
I mean, there are so many kids.
It's only about 10% of the population that has this issue.
Maybe even 20.
Oh.
Another cog I would say, what about all your vacations and stuff? So a kid does and also needs to know. No, I'm saying why it's school days.
Oh, okay.
Because if this happens right before Christmas, and also
They
it's
get
2 weeks off.
Now you get
There you go.
7
I
weeks
didn't
off.
I had 16 days,
Yes.
or whatever.
Okay.
And we would take into, if we had off for Labor Day, I mean, I think we're looking for weeks and we're looking for consistency. We aren't looking at that number of being like, you are 1 day short of almost making it, but we still would be celebrating and taking some of that into account as far as like placement on this. So there is some gray area wiggle room. It is just not something that I want to advertise.
No, not at all. They'll use it against you.
So I don't want to interrupt you too long.
That's
I want you to keep going. But so far, sounds really cool. Sounds fantastic. It seems like a lot of work to keep track of.
Yeah.
You think you have a system in place for you? Okay, all right.
It's coming.
Keep going. I don't mean to interrupt you. So keep firing. All right.
All right. I'm currently looking at this page.
Yep.
All right. I just want it to be concrete with families about what specifically we're looking for. And these are the high areas that we see. So when we pull the data from Infinite Campus, and these are in no order. Actually, we started with some alphabetical order and then we added a few. So bullying and harassment. I also would just add like being mean. Because bullying, a lot of times I see kids and they come in and they say like so-and-so is bullying me. Well, it's the first time someone's been mean to them. So is it bullying? No, I'm gonna say not yet, okay? Because bullying is targeted and repetitive. But they're being mean. And maybe they were mean to Amy the first time and now they're being mean to this person. So now it's not necessarily targeted, but like, I would like to add like mean to that category. We would like to be adding bus behavior. I know that bus behavior is a hot topic. Mr. Dummermuth does a really due diligent job of coming in and having conversations with students. And I think that if you are getting written up and they have a step process also, but oftentimes my middle schoolers are the same behaviors that we see in the classroom, we're seeing on the bus. And I love our teachers, but it's more dangerous to even be seeing those behaviors on a bus where a bus driver is being distracted. Disrespect, horseplay, racial and derogatory language, refusal, skipping class, swearing and verbal aggression, threats to intimidate or harm, disruption, and then other incidents, behaviors that may develop. That's kind of that clause that covers anything that may come up, such as TikTok trends. That was our new one this year that we had to talk to a lot of students about. Single action. So these are the things that typically get students in an in-school, out-of-school suspension situation right away. Physical fighting, vaping, tobacco, drugs, and alcohol, and threats of violence. Oftentimes, a threat assessment outcome could be to be then placed on a contract, like at a specific level. All right, almost done here. So at this meeting for Shelby, in addition to talking to her family, we're going to be going over the student support plan. So I want some feedback from Shelby. I want to know what's going to help her. So 3 things that she's good at. At school, she struggles when. Ways that she can ask for help. Signs that she needs help regulating her behavior. So maybe she starts to feel it in her stomach. We have a counselor that always talks to kids that says, like, when you start to get mad, want to swear, refuse, like, where do you feel it first? Then we go over internal coping strategies and external coping strategies, and then check in. So who's your adult? Because that's also the person that I want to know that some of these things, I want that person maybe trying to check in with Shelby a little extra. Maybe it's a teacher from last year that can even just send Shelby an email or a positive shout out or what. I mean, there's lots of negative things that we do as teachers. And then the last one is the agreement page. And it just says that we're all going to work together because we realize that we want what's best for Shelby. And it says, like, as a student, I'm going to work on this. As the parent guardian, I support this, and we're going to work on some things at home. And as the administrator, we're going to work on things at school and a place to sign. We did put a disclaimer at the bottom that says a signature is not required for a student contract to go in effect. So if after going through this, the parent says, well, I'm not signing, we can say, that's okay, we're going to be moving forward with this. A quick background, the idea behind a student contract. So I went, behaviors, I mean, we're all struggling. I would lie if I said we weren't. I went to the assistant principal conference and I went to Mr. Sasane and I went to a couple of sessions. And the word intent comes up a lot. And that word we carried over to a lot of conversations when we have to call home. I understand that your student didn't intend to cause a disruption, to cause hurt, that they didn't intend to do this. But you take into effect like how much of disruption that caused and the outcome of it, and then the repetitiveness of what's going on. We also reached out to Sparta. Sparta is doing a version of this. They said, they gave us like 2 or 3 words of advice. Number 1, over-communicate. You have to over-communicate that the district or that the middle school is moving to this with support of higher administration and school board. So advertising it out, and then, gosh, what was my next thing? I just lost my train of thought. I've been talking a lot, I'm so sorry. Over-communicate it out, follow through. What's my last one?
Is it constant?
Consistency, yes. So they went from a stereotypical 30 to 40 write-ups a day, which is identical to what we see, and they're down to 10.
Wow.
Because their families realize that we're not putting up with it. And so to talk about, like they said in the beginning, this is a lot of work. It's organization. I'm really lucky. I'm kind of the creative mind. Amy Langner and Jared Saseda are a little bit more of like the technical spreadsheet making minds, which I really, yeah. So together, it makes a really good team because we're able to do it that way. So in the beginning, they were really busy. And this is where having the position of Dean of Students it's allowed me the time to work on this and create this, but carrying over, it'll be a team effort. I think of this as we would be becoming proactive instead of reactive. Right now, I'm chasing students down to go over what they did a day or 2 ago. And this, I'm hoping, would be opening that communication and setting the bar high, that these are the expectations we have. This is school. You've been doing school for a long time. That's always my talk. We want you here, but if you can't do this, we have another option for you. Okay, questions in just 1 second, okay? Can I just?
Sure, go.
I'm talking and I just want to get it.
I'm gonna lose my train, my here, so I'm ready now.
Take a note.
All right, yellow paper. So this is a section that I put together for what I would go over with staff.
And this will be at our building meeting. Like, this is kind of the focus of our building meeting.
And out of all of this, sorry, there's only one page that's different. And so the biggest thing I want to do is it just goes over how a student would get a contract. It goes over what parent meetings would look like. But the thing I want to start at is the teacher responsibilities. So we would really be focusing, and it says trauma-informed classroom. There's a lot of different names for trauma-informed classroom. I went with that name on here with the understanding that it could be called something different, okay? Essentially what trauma-informed classroom is it's best practices. It's ways and routines that you have as a teacher to promote students to be engaged and have clear expectations. So what we would do at the beginning of the school year is on one of those first days back building days, we would be reviewing and training in a version of trauma-informed classroom. And those laid out clear routines and expectations. So from the get-go, we've also worked with our district coaches who are going to be working with new teachers and going over scenarios. So a student wants to sharpen a pencil in your classroom, having that procedure in place before day one. Because really it's before, like, it's the first day of school, and the precedent that you set on the first day of school that's really important. Offering choice. So this isn't offering choice every day all the time, do you want to do this or this? It's offering the choice that if you know a student is becoming escalated, are you offering a choice to take their break? Or to be able to doodle for 2 minutes or whatever they need to do. Offering some emotional support, mindful of potential triggers. If we know a student doesn't like talking about what happened the day before, and the first thing they do when they walk in is we say, oh, I heard you got in trouble yesterday. We're also not doing our best practice by setting off a student right away. We need to promote self-regulation and foster a sense of community. So these are, like, this is like tier 1 ideal teacher, what we naturally do. We also find that we need to support teachers in this area too, especially our teachers coming out of college, brand new to the profession. And some of our old veterans, I didn't mean old veterans, could use a little bit of a reminder. If tier 1 is not being met, a student will not be placed under contract or move up a step. So I want that there as a reference to say, if I, as the teacher, trigger the student because I know they don't like talking about what happened yesterday, and I purposely am like, oh, so you got in trouble yesterday. Oh, I heard it didn't go well in Mr. Sesteda's class. Like, I'm kind of poking the bear. Is that a student issue, or is that something that we need to work on to be a better teacher? And again, this is not against teachers. We just have to promote our best practices. Infinite campus. Oh, teachers must call home. No longer are we going to be emailing home unless we can't get a hold of a family. Right now, the plan is like teachers can call or email home. I would say 7 times out of 10, they don't, as a parent, they don't know because they don't check their email. As a teacher, and this is where culture it's hard, and I understand it's hard to call home as a teacher because oftentimes we get hit with resistance of upset parents who maybe already have their students' perspective. But that's why hearing it from the source is really important. Because if I just send an email home that says, Shelby was rude and disrespectful and didn't allow for classroom learning, I don't know what happened. Versus actually calling home and saying like, hey, this is Mrs. King. today in class, I tried to do this and this, but Shelby still continued to do X, Y, and Z. So hearing it from the source is really important. We talked about it, there's times that you can't get the phone call, like somebody doesn't answer, an inbox isn't made, so we are allowing for the email to be sent. We just want documentation that a phone call was tried and we're sending the email. We have found that Infinite Campus has a general information call log. This is very fast. We went through and tried it, and probably within 10 seconds, I had a parent phone call logged. It was very quick. It was a couple clicks. I clicked parent, I clicked the time I made, like it was very fast to log the phone call that was made. Teachers will commit to not threatening a contract and leave the decision to end conversations at admin. We don't want to create a culture of I gotcha. Oftentimes now I hear, I'm going to write you up for that. Well, that doesn't create, that's not the culture in the community. Like, I will take our team in the office, we will take the heavy burden of being the bad guy with the contract. I don't need and expect a teacher to have to take that burden or make that threat. Notes on the bottom. So repeat contract students were started at level 4. If Shelby started at a level 1, she got off of her contract, she was celebrated, everything's great, and now she's back at it. She could get a new contract, but she would go to level 4. We're not going to mess around with doing all of this all over again. Students who do not follow the restrictions, expectations, such as turning in their phone, staying seated with a parent at events, will advance to the next step. I don't even know that I want to confront a student at the football game. I'm just going to know that you're running around the football game, and we're going to have a conversation the next day to talk about the fact that you understand this expectation and you're choosing not to follow it. All contracts restart at the beginning of the school year with the exception to online placement. Now the reason we put that there, if a student right now would be placed in, or the last month of school is placed in an online placement, we would want them the following year to possibly start online, maybe not for the whole semester or the whole year, maybe the first 2-3 weeks of school, so that they understand that there is that follow through. I could envision, like, we've had some students this week who we were like, that could be a contract kid. And thinking about if they got placed on a contract and there was only 2 weeks of school left, they'd be like, big deal.
Yeah.
So having that follow through, now there's maturity that happens over the summer. There's different things that happen at home. So I think the possibility of maybe 2 to 3 weeks, now maybe we decide the behaviors were so severe that we don't want to offer it. So we kind of just put that in there, like that an online placement can carry over to the next school year. And then there is that any student serving ISS or OSS would be placed on the step 4 of the contract. That was on that original grade plan.
Can I say something?
We're up.
So I think one of the biggest parts, just if you look at that page, right, like the biggest chunk is like our responsibility as staff, right? So again, I think one of the things that's really important when we communicate out with families is like we are taking on a lot of responsibility. Like we know we have to do better as well, right? So our tier 1 instruction, we have our SEL department that meets, and they, as a district, have identified 5 essential standards around just, they're called the ASPA standards, which are like the School Counselors Association, and also CASEL standards, which is like self-awareness, self-management, right? Like those types of things. And we've identified 5 essential standards within that, in this area. So on Wednesdays during Tito time, there's tier 1 instruction every week, but we're a lot more purposeful. So we were using second step, and we just found that it was not engaging for middle schoolers in any way, shape, or form. So we found it's called Be Good People. We had some pilots running from different students, our classrooms in our building this year, and it has had a lot of really good feedback. It's tailored to middle schoolers. They also have tier 2 instruction and tier 3 instruction. all based around those. So that SEL department has been working on what does the tier 1 level every week, what will 8th grade teachers be teaching, what will 7th and 6th grade teachers be teaching, but then also that's like a big part of it. And like learning about, within Hannigan's, they have the 4 C's of the classroom. It's like culture and communication and all of those things, because we recognize also that it's going to be very busy in the fall for us, just ensuring that that tier 1 level is established in the classrooms, and like we have the expectations that teachers are free to say, hey, I don't even know what that kind of, like, what would that expectation look like for, I've never thought about sharpening a pencil, right? Like, I've never thought about having to do a procedure for this, but like Hannigan's would say, everything is a procedure, right? Everything has to be taught. And I think we've also assumed for a long time, like I've taught for over 20 years in a middle school, what 7th graders used to be able to do without me having to touch, like, and reteach is no longer that, right? Like we now have to teach everything. I had a conversation with a 6th grade teacher today. They're like, I had no idea that I was gonna have to teach this to them. Like, they're in 6th grade. It's like, yep, this is what we have to do now. So just embracing it and saying, taking back some of the ownership and letting teachers feel empowered, right? Like right now, I think that they just feel we have like, what do we have now? We have nothing. And so giving that back to them. And that's all I'm listening. Sorry.
Very good.
Okay.
Your comments, I guess. I'm very glad to hear this from the input I have from people I know in middle school. They're anxious for this to start because whatever it is now is not working. We talk about expectations in the classroom, not being able just to get up and walk out the door with no permission, they just get up and leave. And there's nothing that happens from that. So I think actually being very gracious for 8 steps, I would cut it back to 5 or 6. I'm sorry, but that's me. There's a lot of work on the teachers, but I know that they're already making those phone calls, so that's not new news, at least to me. For all of those places where it says teachers are calling, they are already doing that. It's good to have the parents involved there. And just another thought, if these kids are behaving this way at school, they're probably behaving that way at home. And sometimes parents don't know what to do either. So is there a possibility that maybe the guidance counselors and our nurses could come up with some sort of a list or resources some of these parents can contact for some better parenting techniques or social services, who to contact with some of this stuff? Because I know personally, some of them are at their wits' end and they don't know what to do.
Yes, and we do that now.
It's so out of hand, in their homes as well, so. But I'm very glad.
Just my question is, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps for the teachers to call home. There comes a point where if this is the same student over and over and over, that teacher shouldn't be calling home. Either the dean of students or somebody needs to step in because either the message isn't getting to them properly or something isn't clicking. So I think we've got to look at where do we say it's no longer the teacher. We've got to get the dean of students or you guys involved because it's not working.
Yeah, and I think we already are, and we're having conversation, but it's also important to remember it doesn't have to be the same teacher all 7 steps. And it usually rarely is. It's usually multiple teachers, seeing it in multiple areas and multiple classrooms. So it should, rarely have we seen it with a teacher.
Just one teacher.
Yeah.
I think too, it's getting that firsthand accountability. It's so different when I try to tell the story, and I miss pieces, and they don't get the frustration from me that they get from the teacher. I will always offer to sit with the teacher to make the phone call and team it together.
I actually see both points 100%. Because I think you're 100% correct. But like they're saying, if I'm the teacher, hopefully I'm not the one calling sometimes, and I hope that that's where you would intervene and say, Mr. Dino, you should not have to call
Even if
the
it's
6th time.
not the same teacher, I'm just saying, if it's
Good
teachers.
Yeah.
It's the same, that'd
But
be
it's the
more-
same
yeah,
student
yeah.
and it's different teachers. They're not getting the answer, they're not getting what they need with what's happening here or something, So we gotta bring in maybe the big guns.
And I agree with that 100%, but I can also see where they'd be like, okay, I guess it's not just one teacher. Now I've gotten it from 3 different teachers. So you know what I mean? And so I 100% see what you're saying, but
I'm sure they're taking it serious that
Yeah.
you guys are calling too. I think it has to happen.
It's a good comment.
The other thing I would say is, the ALEC room can't become fun, and it's gotta change, because it's become fun.
It has become fun. I've had the boys kind of say kids ask to go to the
I've heard that
alley
at high school a lot.
because, their friends there,
And handing out candy.
and they're handing out candy.
That's not what that room is
Yeah.
about.
So
Yeah.
our hope now though is that you are sending them out and now like that's getting them under the contract. Like every time you get sent out, like
Right.
you're moving up a step now.
Yeah.
So like there is that like, so Shelby is under her contract, right? And she's getting sent out of class. That means she's doing one of these things again. And so now Shelby's moving up a step and she's getting closer to online learning. I agree that the ALEC room, like we've had this
You
conversation.
just gotta reel it in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
And to your comment, and he said they're kids, but those 8th grade students are gonna be driving in a year and a half, and they're making poor decisions here. They're gonna be on the road for, they're not quite kids anymore. They're getting close to young adults, and they should be treated as such, and the consequences too.
Could we put, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no,
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 you're good, you're good.
okay, what I'm concerned about is last year's PBIS and the fatigue of PBIS, kind of at the junior high level, which is falling flat at the high school level, but that doesn't concern you. Kind of falling flat because it just is not, I don't think it's quite where you guys need to be, but the fatigue and to revert back to doing nothing, and here we have all these referrals, and here we have this pile, and what do we do, and overwhelmed, and not sticking to the guns, because as you know, behavior, once you start calling them on the carpet for every infraction, because I would hope that that's what you're going to be doing, is the first infraction and not wait until the 4th infraction. I mean, as soon as a swear word comes out, just as an example, swear word comes out of their mouth, bam, you're done. You're going to go get whatever the first step is, period. Versus going, oh, I'll let it slide. Oh, I'll let it slide. Oh, and then the teacher getting sick of it after 5 times or 10 times and getting cussed out. I don't know how many times, and then blowing her top or his top and going, here, do something about it, that it's going to be done at the very, 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 very beginning of the start so that we can get rid of it and having the understanding that there's an uptick and then maybe it'll calm down. And then I'm with Miss Bloom, 8 steps, it's a little much. I would either cut into half or at least cut 3 steps out of there and not give them as many chances because they need to understand enough is enough, and we're dang sick of this.
Yep. And we, can I jump? So we talked about that, and I think the other big thing is like them getting tier 2 intervention. So again, we've identified that they're very disruptive, right? And so they're using their mouth too much, right? Or they can't keep their hands to themselves. There's literally like a hands-off academy. But those take like 6 to 8 weeks for them to go through. So we're trying to give them the opportunity to relearn, because the other really big thing here is none of us, like the goal of this is we do not want kids at step 8. Right. We know that online learning is not best for kids. However, we also know that having them there is not working, but we also want to know when we're going that far. I mean, that to the core of an educator is like not having them with me is like devastating to me, right? But we also have to think about all of our kids, not just one, but giving them the opportunity to learn, because what the expectation of a 6th grader was 10 years ago and what we can, there's drastically changed. It's just the things that Oh my goodness, just walking to the bathroom, things that we would assume they can do, it's been very rough. And so we just wanna make sure that we're also like giving them the opportunity to learn and to change the behavior. Like, we have new skills, you've taught us how to do it, now give us a chance to actually do them. And that's the only reason why it keeps.
So we also made this with the understanding of not knowing, we need support, right? And I would rather come to you with an 8-step plan than come to you with a 5-step plan that is maybe considered harsh. So when we planned this out, we reviewed this today before coming here. We talked about the possibility that we could get rid of step 2. Step 2 is a 30-minute lunch detention. And chances are, maybe a student's already had one, or 2. And so we talked about if we got rid of step 2, that this would become a 7-step process. We would still have the core there. Students would then get to that tier 2 support faster. So if I've already had the meeting with your parents, now the next step is we're looking at 2 lunch detentions versus just 1. So with support, we would be in favor of going down 1 step and taking it to a 7-step plan. We just wanted to be maybe a little bit cautious, just to make sure that.
So my fast 2 cents would just be, we gotta start somewhere.
Correct.
And we can't say,
Exactly.
we can't consider this to be, this is it for 10 years, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like,
This is the
let's
starting
just
point.
try it, right? You know?
Right.
So I wouldn't get too picky about, let's take out
And-
step 2, let's move, let's change step 5. I mean, let's just start
And
somewhere.
I understand about, that, and it's fine and dandy, I'm not having to implement it, and so whatever works for you, and what you're willing to do to get their behavior in. My whole issue with the public coming to me is that, hey, my kid is constantly being bullied, or some swear words interrupting the learning of my child, and my child has rights, and what happened to their rights versus this other kid's rights. And so doing something is better than doing nothing, and attempting to do something and actually following through. I just want to see the follow through of whatever you're doing to the end, and see how it comes out at the end of the year, and see how your experiment works. Because it is an experiment, because you're going to end up tweaking here and there, and I get that, and as you go. But I want to know, how are you going to get the teachers on board so that they wipe out this behavior the first
Trust me,
time?
they are, Teresa, they
They
are.
are.
They are.
Yeah.
They can
They are.
see, like you had said, like,
Yeah.
it sounds horrible, but like there's an end in sight, like, because right now they're constantly just, it's like repeat, it's like Groundhog's Day, right? And
Yeah.
Groundhog's Day, and they're
They're tired,
Students
they're
don't care.
fatigued.
Students and families don't care about a suspension.
And that's what I've heard too. I've heard at high school level, I've heard, nothing happens, but now we can say something happened because now they're at step 2, now they're at step 3, now they're at step 4. So.
I think it's also really important to know, like, when I talked with the dean of students at Sparta, she's my first cousin, so we were talking, and it's important to know, like, I asked her, like, how many kids do you have online learning? She's like, at the time, one, and this was in March.
Wow.
1 kid, because what they found is when families realize that is, they become much more invested, right? And so she's like, we've had 1 student, she had a 1 on like a step, I don't know what kind of step they do, like, to be quite honest, but they
I
had
think
1.
they finished the year with 3 or 4 on
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
So that was it.
So when they go to the ALEC room, will they have expectations that they
Yes,
will follow?
100%.
If they don't, then,
Yes.
okay, so that person has to make sure that they're
Correct.
playing with everybody.
Yes.
And we'll follow up by saying, like, we are starting these expectations, I would say, like, on day 2. The only reason I say day 2 is like day 1, like, we're watching the videos and everything's sparkly because it's day 1, right? But our 7th and 8th graders, we've been doing school for a long time. Sometimes, and in talking to our 6th grade teachers, like, middle school is new, so giving them a day or 2 of and our 6th grade teachers do a really good job of, I mean, they're still in lines going to the lunchroom and like their expectations, but this would not be a teach for 4 to 6 weeks before we give. Because we've found, or I believe that bad habits are formed. I can't be positively reminding kids all day in the building. I can't be
No,
everywhere.
and you shouldn't, that's what we talked about that.
Right.
You know, once you hit those 7th, 8th grade, you already know the rules. I certainly appreciate the students will turn in their phone. You talk about a consequence,
That hurts.
that's a hurt. And I
Yeah.
think to implement, and others will see that. And then I don't know, how does that impact when I remember the chart up there where it falls from the green to the lighter green to the yellow and the red at risk. They fall in that category. Now you have to remediate, and it throws more on the teacher. So if you can stop that, they're less effective. And so I think I'd say go for it.
Go for it.
Shit's painless here.
Is there anything that you would
The
like
only,
resources, like
no, I
another
think,
person to organize
Yeah.
all this?
Well, yeah, I am super grateful that we have that Dean of Students position to be able to help do, I mean, everything that we do plus organize this. Because I, as a parent, I'm a big believer in follow through and consistency. That's my parenting style. And that's what's gonna make this work, is the follow through and the consistency with
Well,
it.
the other thing too, and I think you hit on it, we don't have the availability of the counselors. A lot of these students have some deep-seated problems, but if you can hone it in and take care of the others, keep them on that side of the fence, that's good. But the other is another challenge next. That's the stuff. Thank you, I think it's excellent.
Awesome. Thank you. A lot of work.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing the report.
We don't have anything.
No, it's just presentation. They're planning on doing it, so.
Okay, good.
Right? You're doing it.
They're on, touch base in 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
We know how to teach you from that
Google.
writing.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, consideration and possible ratification of the tentative agreement regarding the 2025-2026 TEA teacher base wage increase / collective bargaining agreement.
Administration highly recommends approval. I want to thank our board members, all of you, especially Teresa and Spencer for being there, and also our TEA reps and getting that done in an afternoon. We appreciate it, so recommend approval.
Thank you, Rosa.
Motion by Spencer, so we have a second.
Oh, I'll second that.
Second by Teresa. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm gonna abstain, right? Yeah. Yep. Mr. Murray, Mr. Nemco abstain. So 5-0, thank you very much. All right, next, consideration and possible approval of the proposed 2025-2026 teacher supplemental pay increase.
Supplemental pays discussed in open session. Michelle put some options together to continue to elevate teacher salaries and move into the area.
First, I have to do a little education first, just a reminder.
Here we go. We're good.
Just to go through a little bit where these funds come from, or how they're determined. So we went through last meeting about base wage and how base wage is based off of starting teaching, and it doesn't include anything special like a master's degree or anything like that. So on January 1st, we take a snapshot of the wages, and that was 11.9 million. We also take a snapshot of what the total salary compensation is on January 1st, which was $14.4 million. And again, this is just our professional teaching staff. Then, what you just approved, the base wage is based off of CPI for the previous year, and that was 2.95% last year. So when the TEA and administration had their base wage meeting, they're actually, we're talking about $351,303. And how that was divided out is that every year teachers move down a step based on the years that they've worked for Tomah. So the step movement compensation is $178,000, and then that left 173,000. So if you take that divided by our 253.1 full-time teachers, each teacher then received will receive next year $683.80 per full-time teacher. Again, that was just the base wage that we just did. Then typically, the salary then will include whatever they made this year, plus that step movement of, and the steps range from $500 to $1,100. They vary, and I'll show you a picture of it in a little bit. And then, additionally, whatever you approve for supplemental pay and so we typically base that off of the total salary for January 1st, which was $14.6 million. And I had embedded some resources for you looking at a 3%, 3.25%, or 3.5%. And this is based off of total salary for this year. Questions about that? So I'm gonna go to my next part then, but this is just to show you it. A couple things, Teresa, do you have questions before?
No, I was just playing now.
A couple things that if we just look at, if we just look at a 3% for right now. So the top of that was the base salary that we did based off that 11.9 million. The second part is total salary compensation of $14.4 million. 3% of that is $434,000. So we take that $351,000 off of that, and there are two things that I'm suggesting the board consider approving. One is applying an additional $141 to our A2 teachers next year, and then an additional $100 to all of our K and L teachers. There's 41 K and L teachers, and there's 14 A2 teachers. And the reason being is that would make every step a minimum of $600. Because right now, our K and Ls, each step is only $500. 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was $0, but we've slowly built that to have $500 every year. And the 141 added to the A2 would bring them to a $600 step also. Now, if you consider the 3%, that would put an additional $302 for each teacher. So that would be $986 per each teacher. That would be base wage plus supplemental, and then whatever step they get, because everybody goes down a step every year. So it would be a minimum of $600. So I embedded for you to look at 3%, 3.25, and 3.5%.
Questions, comments, concerns, ideas from Ms. Clark?
Right, I'll throw out. I think based on just what we're talking about and what the teachers have been dealing with, I think we'll look at the 3.5.
I'm thinking that I have to agree with you, Spencer, in respect, I'm concerned about our budget, but in the respect of retention and bringing them up to a higher standard that's even across the country, they aren't quite there the beginning teachers just aren't high enough to retain across the country. So we need to be a little bit more competitive.
So what that would mean is that base wage increase is obviously gonna stay the same at 683.
Right.
Then that would bring supplemental pay up for each teacher to 588, and then it would be an additional at least $600. I can show you what that would look like for next year. When we get discuss.
Yeah, I'll make those, I didn't get a discussion.
I'll second it.
You want to see that?
Yeah, I would indicate that the 3.5% compensation supplement.
And that includes your good with the A2
With the
receiving
100,
141
yeah,
and the extra
make 600
100.
step,
Okay.
correct, 141 for A12.
Okay, so I got a motion by Spencer. Teresa, you seconded his?
No.
No, you did not.
Heidi did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna give that to her.
Okay, no, that's great. So Heidi seconded it, as presented there. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains? All right, thank you for reading through that.
And do you wanna just see what the salary schedule will look like then for next year?
Sounds like you want to show us.
I do like, well, I figured it out, so.
I just want to work on it, work it up.
And I know that you can't
Except
see
I can't
this,
see it.
you can't see this great, well, I'll just make it big, and I can just.
Show me the first one,
Okay, whoops,
what you're going from to what you're going to.
okay, so if I'm a first year teacher, I make $46,500. If I'm a second year teacher, I'm gonna go to $47,901.
Okay.
Okay, so this is made up of the A1 plus the step movement of 459 plus the base of 683 plus the supplemental and then that additional 141. And you can see here these steps. These steps here with C, this is remnant of, I think it was back in 2014, 15, 16, somewhere in there, where they went to 3-year cycles. And it was every 3 years that you stayed the same salary for 3 years, and after that 3rd year, you were bumped up. And it was anywhere from 2,200-ish to 3,000-ish. And so 2 years ago, I think we took those and then we divided them out weekly based on the steps. So that's why they're not even. It's just how it originally was set up. Okay, I'm done showing you the numbers. We can, so Dr. Hanson will get an email, and do salary schedule out to people.
I had a question. We're okay with that. Past that, just for discussion, I don't know if it's appropriate or not. I would like for us to start thinking about even additional compensations, because I look at, if a particular school exceeds requirements, I think that somehow we should acknowledge that. And I don't know whether that would become a critical factor, but I think to recognize it, and we're not talking about a lot of money, a lot of teachers. I think we have 3 schools: Camp, Montessori, and Warren's, right?
Are you talking like a bonus?
Well, whatever you want to term it. I'm just
for
saying
those
some
teachers for that
recognition.
year?
And there are no strings. That doesn't mean that it happens next year or whatever. I'm just saying in light of that, maybe that's something we can start thinking about for the future. We don't have to retro, but I'm saying for the future to think about that.
So you're talking about the oral test?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's the only measurement we have. That's what we have.
Could it be something other than monetary?
Well, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I think some acknowledgement somewhere along the
Definitely.
line to do that. Well, I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I should be.
Like
I didn't mean to be smart.
an extra day off, or,
My
something like that, I don't know.
I
I will always be open and honest with you, even if you don't ask. My core problem with that is that the teachers based on whatever building they're in, they don't get to choose the ones that come, or the family environments that they come.
True.
And we definitely have schools that are in different neighborhoods. And that's not any fault of any adult working at any of the schools. So not that the teachers at those schools that have exceeds expectations don't deserve something more. I have a hard time believing that they're working harder than the ones working at the other schools that don't have as much.
Oh, and I don't disagree with that, but we do get the proficiency report comes out. And that is apples to apples, basically, but I understand that where we have the disadvantage, but that still should not conflict. Because there are efforts that are made in that, even though in some of the others that it will maybe encourage additional, especially in light of what I just heard today in the middle school with behaviors. If we can address those, then we will see the scores elevate. It's not just a function of not being able to read and do math, it's about behavior.
The other trick with that is they're already refining cut scores and everything, so the metrics
I know
you're talking performance based, which is very, very rare.
Oh, I understand that, but
in fact, it's flipped. To enter your best teachers in your most struggling school, they will offer them. I've seen it in other urban centers where you pay more of those.
I would agree with you if it were not for the fact that Milwaukee gets $28,000 per student. How effective is that? So are we acknowledging good work, or are we just?
We don't have control over it.
But you know what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
But there's other ways you can
Well, I'm
recognize
saying,
that
we
achievement
have to
without
do
a
it somehow.
monetary.
Somehow. That doesn't.
Yeah.
And the principals do recognize the students and the staff in some form or fashion.
But recognize it to the community as well.
Okay, but on that same line, I have seen that some of the lowest schools with the lowest socioeconomic statuses rise above the other schools that had all of the mix that everybody wants. And their scores have risen. It's just a matter of how creative and what the teachers have done in the classroom and the difference and how they met the needs of those students. And so I think if a school is rising to those academic standards that my colleagues have stated, then I think we do need somehow to recognize them some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary, but we still need to have some sort of recognition.
If you want a quick comment, we can. We just gotta be careful. We're getting a little off the agenda.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm just gonna say that, there's a lot of teachers along the way that had input.
right.
So,
Yeah, there
we
is.
can't just pinpoint one,
Right.
so.
It's, I'm not saying you guys have bad comments. It's just,
Yeah,
be careful that we're not talking about something out of the agenda. So, okay. That one's good. Okay, next would be support staff. Okay, consideration and possible approval of the proposed 2025-2026 support staff wage increase.
Right, also embedded for you were 3 different options for support staff. With the 3%, 3.25%, and 3.5%. Obviously, being the person that oversees support staff, I would be asking to consider the same for the support staff that you do the professionals.
Comments, questions about that one? Thoughts?
Or make motion to support staff 3.5 wage increase. As presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Spencer to go to the 3.5, second by Teresa this time. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we do not abstain on that one. All good, thank you. All right, consideration possible approval, changes in support staff at designated holidays.
These 2 items were brought up at our meet and confer with support staff. One was that our building level support staff are certified aides and not certified aides. The salary or the holidays that they have, like for example, they have Thanksgiving and Friday after Thanksgiving. So they had requested that, like, for that Friday after Thanksgiving, we put, like, over the holiday break, because that's such a longer period of time without pay. And so there's no financial impact. It would be a change to the handbook, which we'll be bringing in July, the handbook, but because it was a holiday, and my next thing with the custodial staff, does holidays, so that's what we just brought all the holiday stuff. So there'd be, like I said, no financial impact, to changing the support staff from 2 days at Thanksgiving time to 1 day at Thanksgiving time, and another one over the holiday break, so that, there's at least 1 more day of pay.
And that's what they've been
And
requesting.
they asked, I think, for maybe the last 2 years. And then the other, the one is, just to give a little history, and I can't tell you exact dates, but there used to be 2 types of custodians. Ones that worked during the school year at the schools, and ones that worked during the school year and during the summer. So they had like a category 1 and a category 2, is what they call it. So the category 2s would, or the school year people, they would work all summer long, but they wouldn't get any benefit because they weren't full-time people, but they were doing the exact same job. So several years ago, they kind of combined them so that they could earn some benefit. But one thing that they never changed was the amount of holidays. So we have a group of custodians that are doing the exact same job really as this other group. They get 2 more holidays for the year because they're working they kind of all are. So I think that's an area that for about a total cost of about $8,000, we even those groups out so that we don't have that animosity of doing the same job side by side every single day. But I have to work this day over whatever day it might be. But the person that I worked with for the other days has this off pay. And there are other benefits to the full-time people, but those full-time people are kind of grandfathered in that once they retire, we've been hiring that category. So eventually, they'll all be the same as far as benefits go. But this is one that the board can fix fairly simply.
So you have to have a certain number of hours then to fall in that category?
It was just if you were working before and you happened to get one of the full-time jobs and not just a school year job, even though the school year people were working all summer cleaning buildings too. It was just a discrepancy that it just has always existed. And Mr. Gorder tried to combine them and did some things, but I think this is just one more step to making this group of people that are doing the exact same job feel so valuable.
But it would not impact their benefits, because we talked
They
about the
would-
part-time.
No.
Because if they're part-time, they would get,
No,
Okay.
these people are working full-time.
well, that's what I'm saying.
And I'm just talking about the custodial staff,
Okay.
so, category 2s.
You understand?
I make a motion to approve.
Yes.
Okay.
So you want this,
Separately though,
Um,
or do we?
if you wanna do it separately, like to move the day and then to do the custodian, it would be.
Yeah.
Just clarification here, yeah.
yeah, I wanted the clarification of motions.
I mean, it would make it cleaner.
I make the motion on both, but I think it's the right thing to do, so. Why would we screw it?
So you're just as presented.
Yes,
If
as
you're
presented.
fine, I can write details of those 2 things.
Yes, yes,
I'll second.
The motion by Rick as presented for both, and you seconded Katie or no? Yeah, okay.
with the details in there.
Yeah. Okay, motion by Rick and second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, consideration possible approval of central office wage increase for the 2025-2026 school year.
Right, that information was also embedded, these are personnel that work, I wanna say with sensitive information, so for example, Dr. Hanson's administrative assistant, my administrative assistant,
Comments,
And
questions, or
these
motion?
are full, these people work, these are full-time people. None of them
Is the pupil services assistant, is she the sped person?
Comments, questions, or motion?
I would make a motion to do 3.5. I mean, I know what some of these people have to
Yep.
deal with
Yep.
and go through, and
Gets us
I
for
think they
uniforms.
fully deserve it.
And I'll second,
Okay.
Ms. Rice's motion.
Second by Katie, second by Teresa for 3.5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Consideration and possible approvals for scheduling the 2026 annual meeting on Monday, October 20th, 2025 at here, the Robert Cooper Learning Center, beginning at 6.
This has been a new standard, moving this to October. We got all the financial standard, and it's the tightest meeting we have right there, so it went very well the last few years.
I'll make a motion.
Sorry,
Nope, that's fine.
I'll second.
sorry, I'm writing sometimes.
new.
I'm sometimes I'm
that-
focused on what I'm writing.
Is that on the same day as the regular October meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
It'd be, what'd you say?
Is that
Before our
on the
regular-
third Monday?
Yeah, it should be before our regular, no, it couldn't be. 20, so it'd be 2013-6, yeah, so it'd be 6 o'clock before our regular meeting. Because if you look at the Mondays, it'd be the 20th, the 13th, and the 6th.
Yes, it is.
Nice mapping.
There you go. So
Yeah,
it's only
it's
an hour
third
before the
Monday.
regular scheduled meeting. So there's a motion by Heidi, a second by Sue, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have a report on the professional and support staff trainings for beginning our 2025-2026 school year and throughout early release Wednesdays.
So I don't see Ms. Pluger. She, they changed softball, so.
Oh,
Yes, and unfortunately, we lost.
Yeah.
So,
I did tell her if she was gonna file, we'll do that.
yeah, she might be.
So this is just very, very short because, we just wanted to make sure you know what's going on. And of course, you're invited to any and all of these, next year. But for the professional staff, and if you have individual questions about professional staff, you can ask me, but I'm probably gonna say, let's ask Angie, but. So we just wanna let you know that in August, when we have our in-service, we have 4 days of in-service. The first day is for teachers to, get their rooms ready. We do not schedule any meetings at the district level, none at the building level, we tell principals not even to talk to the teachers unless they come to them, because we want them to be able to have that day to get their room ready for the year. Then on Tuesday, we have all of our staff come in, and we, of course, would like to see someone there for that. And the professional staff will have the keynote that's listed up there. And then the afternoon, and then the following day, that Wednesday, they're gonna be going through different ed camp sessions and choices that they will have, really focusing on their anchor statements 1, 2, and 3, beginning our 3's assessment. And, when we get a little bit closer, we fine tune the schedule exactly, we obviously will be sharing that with you also. But I do believe we have a couple of jobs for all of you on that first day to come. So we'll fine tune that first and let you know if you wanna come, you can select.
Which days, because we're gonna need to know sooner than later, because my schedule is going up.
It'll be the 26th, August 26th.
August 26th,
August 26th.
so hold that day for you.
Well, it will, jobs will be just right away in the morning, but you can stay for obviously the whole time to engage in that day. And then that Thursday, 28th, someone looking at a calendar, am I telling you? right?
Thursday the 28th, yes.
That is our district-wide safety meeting, and I think 1 or 2 of you came to that last year, where we partnered, I think Sue did actually, we partnered with, Tomah PD, and, actually, Chief Pedersen will be doing a presentation, and my assistant, very, very well, is Andrew Anderson, here, so just, so you're obviously invited for support staff, they're not scheduled to work on that Monday. Tuesday, they'll be all together in the auditorium with us also for the beginning of the year. Then we're gonna split off and go to the library. And our keynote is brains of the games, today's learners with artist science and strategies. This is something that, our support staff at our meeting confers when we have trainings, they have asked to be included in trainings and to get more trainings, especially with some of our behavior students. And over the course of the last 3 years, we've slowly implemented more and more of those. For example, the first year that I was business manager, I had 3 or 4 days that it was by choice that you could come on, like not school days. And by that last one, we were having people come and do something at 8 support staff. So this is more of a, you're invited, this is your first day of work, your letters of intent, I'll say this is your first day of work. So this will be a full day plus the following day of just support staff. And we're basically going to be going through trauma-informed practices and then managing safety and injury prevention for our support staff. Now, we know we can't go through every single situation and scenario, but we've had support staff say, I'd really like to talk to the support staff at this building because I've heard they do this and this so well, and this we'll have an opportunity to do that some on that those August 2 days. And they, of course, then will be invited on that Thursday and they can expect to come for this training. Then on the early release days, and Angie, I know, would do a much better job of talking about this, but we're going to have some district level professional development and school level professional development. If you recall, in order to do this calendar, some of the whole professional development days had to go away. And then obviously the bulk of the time will either be grade level collaboration or department level collaboration for that vertical alignment. So Angie has this huge document and she said, do you want it? And I'm like, no. I said, we will have another opportunity to talk to the board about it. And she said, are you sure? Yes. And I said, you'll do a better job of explaining exactly what your professional staff is doing than I will be doing. And then to help address some of the things that our support staff have asked for courses a year, we're going to build upon what we did in August. We started using that vector training last year where we did, I think, pathogen, sexual harassment, and one more. But it is just there's about 2,200 different videos on just anything you can encounter in 12 schools. And while I haven't previewed all 35 weeks worth of stuff yet, the things I've looked at, they're modern, they're up to date, they're just universal enough that if our support staff are using, one or two things that they learn in that hour, it will be, world lines up together. Then of course, we also, because of technology, we can have those inter-district idea sharing times for our support staff because we all can get on teams, and I will kind of be overseeing the support staff and helping with that. And then there are also always things that need to be done, especially in our special ed classrooms and just the building in general. Building needs that occasionally support staff for that. But by the time school starts, both professional staff and support staff have very laid out, here's what September will look like, here, so that kids see that.
So support staff, when they're doing early release trainings, they aren't in one building.
No, they'll be in their own buildings. Which the beauty, I think, of using Vector is that, like, I can just take LaGrange, for example. Because of LaGrange's special ed population, every support staff in that building works with students that are on autism spectrum. So there's a whole section on working with students on the spectrum. So that would be, you know, a choice that staff could do. LaGrange, I probably recommend they would. But we will be able to offer you other choices in other buildings based on their student.
Oh, so you just tailor their video presentations according to that?
Yeah, and I haven't, worked it out with the principals yet, but I think that we can have, maybe even on a rotation basis, a support staff person is in charge of this group. You have to make sure the video or something like that, or I can rotate, there's 8, 9, 10 buildings, so I even can rotate through buildings and just be available. It'll be a learning curve, but I think once we get going, it will be fine. It's something that they've asked for, years.
Yeah.
And it's right in their day now where they don't have to, you know,
It's no extra time.
yes, it's part of how we do business. It's kind of just evolved. Shall I tell you on Doug's presentations?
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
You want one?
I would like to know what the heck is going on.
All right. Update on the school forest land sales.
All right, so I embedded, the 2 documents, I did, correct?
Yep.
Let me quick. Myself. So we can just look at one of them. So this template was from the lawyer. The yellow part is obviously things that can change. Well, any of it in there can change, but the, if I added anything, I put it in yellow. And that's where we'll need board input. The rest of it is all legal language where I just put all our information in on it. So, if you've had a chance to look it over in the timeline, I mean, we will be looking at having, things available to look at, bids in July. I have not resent this back to the lawyer to make sure that that it's all good yet. I just want you to have your fingers on it first. So this first one is the 73 acres in Jackson County. And then the other one is, I think it's 71 acres or so on Highway 16 Adrian Township. So we do need to decide, or do some research and at the next meeting decide, like a purchase price, a minimum that you're going to place up for that. I only put that figure in there because I just know it's sold for that. So, I don't remember how big the parcel was, but.
Say it again?
You'll just have to decide the minimum you're willing to, accept per acre.
She put in 8,000 because she had heard some land recently, so that solved the town.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
South Dakota, yeah.
I did not reach out to any realtors or anything like that, when we reached out to the lawyer, the lawyer said most school districts do this route, they don't have a realtor route. I can certainly, I'm sure it's all public record, and see how much it has been, yeah.
I would like to know what the average acreage of forest land costs. I have not researched that before I feel comfortable with moving forward on what this document says. Because we need to do it, make sure that we're doing our darndest for the public's interest in money, because this is a one-time sell of one of our assets that we've had.
descriptions on
Yeah, if you go down a little bit more, there's a map, of the parcel numbers and kind of where it is in accordance with, road.
Would you ever be able to contact any realtor to find out what average hunting land costs are, or
Yeah,
land such as this,
and then these are just some pictures of last year of a couple of places.
So kind of what's your hope to bring this in a couple weeks and then kind of approve it, or what?
Yeah, I mean,
We have some time to get the comps. And
yeah.
There's some, last year's.
Yeah.
We typically don't have that July board academy, so it's either gonna be in 2 weeks or it'll be in 6 weeks, so I can shoot the first 2 weeks.
I guess just see if you can get it and bring it, and it's not that hard for us to have it and say we'll table it. You know, just say we weren't able to get, we weren't able to gather enough information, let's table it till next month.
Yeah.
But you could at least shoot for it, I guess, and then just stay in touch with Dr. Hanson with, I mean, I guess if you're not even close, then just don't put it on the agenda, but if you think you got enough for us, then we can just table it too if we have to. Does that make sense? Pretty good.
To table it, yeah.
Well, we're not gonna do anything tonight, so this will kind of give you a chance to look at it. Ms. Clark is gonna do some more
Okay,
checking with realtors, things like that, to see.
I would
Yeah.
appreciate
I
that.
think everybody, yep.
I just was trying to avoid the fee that they get. So it would be kind of.
It's probably worth it to get, but I mean, you think they'd be able to,
they would be able to give you what
Yeah.
They
what
can
price-
give
what
you
the
averages.
Prices are.
right, they're not forced to, but they can, out of the goodness of their heart, or charge it. But yeah, I would not want anything where they'd be attached to it, but
No.
Just get the comps.
Some kind of a.
Sure.
I gotta be there's somebody out there that work with the district to say, we understand.
One thing that we have to do is we have to obviously do a title search and make sure the title
Right.
is clear, which it all is, so do you want us to do that? Get that started, or do
I
you
would,
want?
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cause you're gonna have to pay for anyway. And then I do know for closing costs, there's one section that you as the seller has to pay a part of the closing costs. There's a certain section, so you might wanna check into that. I think it's a federal law now.
Okay, yeah, so we'll get a little bit more info on that as soon as we can. Last thing we got is contemplated closed session under Wisconsin statute S 19.851C to discuss and take possible action regarding the compensation and benefits for each individual administrators and an individual central office staff employee. Then we will reconvene in open session to take action on closed session business if appropriate and or to adjourn. So can I have a motion to go to closed? Motion by Spencer, we will do, you don't need a second, we'll take a roll call vote.